Have you ever experienced a moment so unexpected that it changed everything? What if one encounter could turn your entire world upside down? Today's story follows the journey of a hardworking black waitress whose life is forever transformed by a single act of kindness, and by none other than Clint Eastwood. This is the story of how a mysterious note set off a chain of events that sometimes made her burst into tears with overwhelming gratitude. It was a cool autumn evening in a small town, where a modest roadside diner served as a refuge for travelers and locals alike. Behind the counter worked Tasha, a dedicated black waitress whose warm smile concealed years of struggle and sacrifice. For Tasha, this diner was more than a workplace. It was the center of her world, a place where she fought each day to provide for her young son, Devon, and to keep alive the spark of hope in her heart. That evening, as the diner began to quiet down, Tasha prepared for the final round of orders. The sound of the door chime startled her, and she looked up expecting another weary traveler. Instead, a man with an aura of quiet authority stepped inside. His presence was magnetic, and even the ambient clatter of dishes and chatter seemed to pause for a moment. Tasha's heart skipped a beat when she recognized him immediately. Clint Eastwood. The very name, spoken in hushed tones by those who admired him, now felt surreal as he walked through the door. Memories of childhood evenings spent watching old westerns with her father rushed back. The legend, Clint Eastwood, had entered her humble diner. Swallowing her surprise, the black waitress straightened her apron and approached his booth. "Good evening, sir," Tasha said in a steady voice. "What can I get for you tonight?" Clint Eastwood regarded her with kind, penetrating eyes and replied after a brief pause. "Just a cup of coffee and a burger, medium rare. No onions." His calm tone and deliberate manner were both reassuring and enigmatic. As Tasha jotted down the order, she couldn't help but feel that fate had chosen this moment for a reason. Though she had served many customers over the years, today's encounter with Clint Eastwood felt different. Every movement, every smile, took on a weight that she had never experienced before. Returning to the counter, Tasha couldn't quiet the question in her mind. Why was Clint Eastwood here in this small-town diner? With the same grace that had carried her through countless shifts, the black waitress set about her work. The evening passed in a blur of quiet efficiency, yet Tasha's thoughts lingered on the presence of Clint Eastwood. When the food was finally ready, she carried the steaming plate and a fresh cup of coffee back to his booth, setting them down carefully. She offered a polite, "Thank you," to which Clint Eastwood responded with a gentle nod. "Thank you," he said simply. And in that brief exchange, Tasha felt as if time itself had stilled. After a few moments of silent contemplation, Clint Eastwood reached into his coat pocket. With deliberate care, he withdrew a small, neatly folded note and placed it on the table along with a few crisp bills. "Keep the change," he said, his voice low and warm. Then, without another word, he rose and walked out the door. For several long seconds, the black waitress stood rooted to the spot, staring at the note left behind by Clint Eastwood. The diner's soft hum continued around her, yet all she could feel was the significance of that simple piece of paper. Tasha gently tucked the note into her apron pocket, vowing to read it later when she was alone. That night, after closing up the diner and ensuring that every task was complete, Tasha retreated to the small break room behind the kitchen. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the note and began to read. The message was written in bold, confident handwriting, and every word resonated deep within her soul. "Dear Tasha, I have watched you work with relentless dedication tonight. In your every action, I saw strength, compassion, and a quiet determination. You, a true black waitress, carry burdens that many would not understand, yet you do so with grace and dignity. I may be a stranger in your eyes, but I know that you deserve to be seen, to be recognized. Please accept this small gift as a token of my respect and encouragement. Use it to help build the future you so richly deserve, whether that be for your child, your dreams, or simply a moment of peace. With sincere admiration, Clint Eastwood." Tasha's hands shook as she read the note. Each word was like a balm on her weary heart. She could hardly believe that Clint Eastwood, the very legend of the silver screen, had taken the time to notice her struggles and extend kindness. Overwhelmed by the power of his message, The Black Waitress suddenly felt a surge of emotion. In that private moment, as the meaning of the note sank in, she burst into tears. Tears streamed down her face as years of hardship and loneliness poured out in a cathartic release. The check enclosed within the note was for $10, coursed to a sum that could change everything for her and Devon. As Tasha sat there in the quiet darkness of the break room, she could hardly process what had just occurred. Every detail, the gentle way Clint Eastwood had spoken, the care in the handwriting of the note, the generous amount felt like a miracle. And yet, amid the overwhelming gratitude, she found herself asking, why me? What had I done to deserve such kindness? For hours, Tasha sat in reflection, the note clutched tightly in her hands. Gradually, the tears subsided, replaced by a quiet determination. The generous gift was not merely a windfall. It was a sign that her hard work and perseverance had not gone unnoticed. The Black Waitress resolved then and there that she would honor this unexpected blessing by forging a new path for herself, a path that could lead to a brighter future for both her and her son. In the days that followed, Tasha's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The memory of that fateful evening at the diner and of Clint Eastwood's life-changing note fueled her determination. Each time she encountered challenges at work, the recollection of the note would return, and once again, she burst into tears of both sorrow and hope. These tears were no longer signs of despair, but of a deep, transformative release that allowed her to embrace her own worth. The impact of Clint Eastwood's kindness rippled out into every corner of Tasha's world. Inspired by the recognition and support she had received, the Black Waitress began to believe that she was capable of more. She enrolled in a local community college, determined to pursue a degree in business management, a field she had once considered completely out of reach. Every lecture, every late-night study session, and every challenge in class became a testament to her newfound resilience. At school, Tasha kept the note with her as a talisman, a constant reminder of that extraordinary night. Whenever the pressures of academia and life weighed heavily on her, she would pull out the note and read its words over and over. In those moments, she often bursts into tears, tears of relief, empowerment, and a fierce commitment to change her destiny. Word of the Black Waitress's transformation began to spread throughout the community. Regular customers at the diner, who had always admired her tireless work ethic, now saw a woman who was not only surviving but thriving. Conversations in the small town buzzed with talk of the day Clint Eastwood had visited the diner and how the life-changing note had set a determined Black Waitress on a new course. Neighbors and friends marveled at her courage and resilience, and soon her story became a source of inspiration for many. One sunny afternoon, as Tasha prepared for another busy shift, she reflected on how much her life had changed. The memory of Clint Eastwood's visit was etched into her heart, and the note continued to serve as her guiding light. That morning, as she arranged fresh flowers on the counter and welcomed customers with her usual smile, the Black Waitress felt an inner strength that had long been dormant. With every order she took and every smile she shared, she remembered that even legends like Clint Eastwood could make a difference in the life of a humble Black Waitress. Weeks later, during a quiet moment after a long shift, Tasha sat at a corner table and scribbled plans for her future in a small notebook. She dreamed of starting her own business someday, a cafe or a community hub where people could gather, share their stories, and support one another. The ideas flowed freely as she planned out every detail. At one point, overwhelmed by the possibilities and emotions, she read the note once again and suddenly burst into tears. These tears were no longer painful. Instead, they were joyful acknowledgments of how far she had come. Determined to give back, the Black Waitress soon began volunteering at local shelters and community centers. She organized small fundraisers and tutoring sessions for struggling youths, always crediting the turning point in her life. The day Clint Eastwood walked into the diner and left a note that made her burst into tears with gratitude. In community meetings, people would often mention how that singular act of kindness from Clint Eastwood had inspired a determined Black Waitress to change her fate and help others do the same. As autumn turned to winter, Tasha's journey continued to unfold in remarkable ways. Despite the challenges of balancing work, studies, and community service, the Black Waitress persevered. Her newfound confidence and hope radiated from her every time she greeted a customer or assisted a neighbor. Each act of kindness she witnessed or shared was a living testament to the power of a heartfelt note. And whenever the weight of her responsibilities grew heavy, Tasha would recall that unforgettable evening and the way Clint Eastwood had changed her life, prompting her to burst into tears, tears of both memory and renewed determination. In a particularly moving moment during a community celebration, Tasha was invited to speak about her journey. Standing in front of an attentive crowd at the town hall, the Black Waitress recounted the night that had altered her destiny. "I was just doing my job at the diner when Clint Eastwood walked in," she began, her voice steady yet emotional. "He left a note for me, a note that told me I was seen and that I deserved so much more. I remember that night clearly. I even burst into tears right there, overwhelmed by the kindness of a man I had only ever seen on screen." The audience listened in rapt silence, moved by her authenticity and strength. Her story was proof that sometimes a single moment, a note delivered by Clint Eastwood to a struggling Black waitress, could ignite a spark that forever changed the course of one's life. After the speech, many in the audience approached her with words of encouragement and gratitude. "Your story gives us hope," one local remarked. "I too have had moments when life seemed unbearable. And hearing that you burst into tears with such honest emotion reminds me that it's okay to feel and to dream." Each conversation reaffirmed Tasha's belief that no matter how hard life may seem, every individual has the power to rise above. Over the following months, Tasha's life blossomed further, with her community college classes progressing smoothly and her volunteer work garnering recognition. The Black Waitress began planning the launch of her long-held dream, a small cafe that would serve as a sanctuary for creativity and community support. Every step of her journey was fueled by the memory of Clint Eastwood and that life-altering note. Even on the toughest days, when exhaustion crept in and the responsibilities seemed overwhelming, she would pull out the note from her bag and, with quiet reflection, sometimes bursts into tears of gratitude and determination. As winter gave way to the promise of spring, Tasha's cafe finally opened its doors. The grand opening was modest but filled with hope and the promise of new beginnings. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers came to celebrate the transformation of the Black Waitress, who had dared to dream beyond the confines of the diner. On that day, as Tasha welcomed every guest with a genuine smile and shared her story, she recalled that pivotal moment when Clint Eastwood had entered her life. "It was a night when a simple note from Clint Eastwood changed everything," she said softly to a curious guest. "A night when I burst into tears and vowed never to give up on myself." The cafe quickly became a hub of creativity and support, a place where every patron was treated like family, and where Tasha's journey served as a beacon of hope. Each time someone mentioned Clint Eastwood, the conversation would inevitably turn to the note that had sparked such transformation in the life of a determined Black waitress. And on many evenings, as the cafe hummed with laughter and conversation, Tasha would find a quiet moment by the window to reflect on that fateful encounter, and sometimes bursts into tears in private recollection of her humble beginnings. In time, Tasha's story spread far beyond the borders of her small town. Local newspapers, radio shows, and even online blogs celebrated the journey of the Black waitress who had been uplifted by the kindness of Clint Eastwood and a heartfelt note. Articles quoted her saying, "There were moments when I burst into tears simply because I believed I was finally seen." Her story resonated with many who had faced hardships and inspired countless others to believe that every act of kindness, no matter how small, could spark a transformation. Now, as I share this remarkable journey with you, I ask, what would you do if a legendary figure like Clint Eastwood appeared in your life and left you a note that reaffirms your worth? Have you ever experienced a moment so profound that you burst into tears with both sorrow and joy? The story of this determined Black waitress reminds us all that sometimes the smallest gesture can create ripples of hope that extend far beyond what we can imagine. So, as you ponder these questions, remember that life is full of unexpected turns. Even if you feel unseen, know that someone out there might recognize your struggles and extend a helping hand, just as Clint Eastwood once did for a resilient Black waitress. And if ever you find yourself overwhelmed by emotion, don't be afraid to let your heart speak. Sometimes, it is perfectly all right to burst into tears. Those tears are a sign that you are alive, that you feel deeply, and that you are ready to embrace the promise of a new beginning. Before we part, I invite you to share your own experiences. Have you ever received a gesture so profound that it changed your life? How did that moment make you burst into tears? Let us know in the comments below. And if you believe that even legends like Clint Eastwood can make a difference in the life of a hardworking black waitress, please like, subscribe, and share this story. Together, we can spread the message that every kind act has the power to transform lives. In closing, remember that every day holds the potential for a miracle. Every challenge can be overcome if you dare to believe in yourself. As the journey of this black waitress shows, even in the face of adversity, hope can bloom. And whenever you come across a note, whether written by fate or a kind stranger, cherish it. Let it remind you that you, too, are worthy of being seen, of receiving kindness, and of having your heart moved so deeply that you burst into tears in the most beautiful way. Thank you for joining us on this journey of hope and transformation. May the legacy of Clint Eastwood's kindness and the resilient spirit of a determined black waitress inspire you to open your heart to the unexpected gifts life has to offer. Embrace every moment, and never be afraid to let your emotions show. Because sometimes, the tears that burst into tears are the first steps toward a brighter tomorrow.